I almost didn't record anything today because my thoughts are with the people that suffered through the tornadoes last night that affected 5 states. That's incredible. They said one of the storms may have been on the ground, one of the tornadoes that is, an F4, F5, F5 usually the highest. The storm was probably on the ground for like 2 hours. 2 hours of destruction, even causing a train to derail. Incredible, incredible images. So surely you've seen them by now. But it was a night of devastation for so many people. Possibly up to 100 people have died as a result of the tornado, as well as many injuries. The property damage is, it looks like a war. It looks like there's been utter devastation from war. It's incredible to see. 6 states have been affected: Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois. If you live in the Midwest and you probably rode through the storm last night, like everyone else, the winds were horrendous. But for the people that live in the states that have been affected, our prayers go out to them, especially the victims and their families. This was an incredible night, especially so close to Christmas. It's the end of the year. And the few people who were able to speak on camera are just literally in shock. They don't know if there's any way that they'll ever recover for this. And one of the towns in particular, they said they don't know what to do. In spite of all of the resources available, they have no clue what can be done about it. So let's think about them this weekend, because that has to be incredible way to end the year for those people, and this is something that they'll never forget for the rest of their lives. So otherwise, the reason why I am here is because the whole thing with the bullying claim, it doesn't make any sense, only because it's nothing that is in Meghan's background that they could even compare to say, this is how she lived. I mean, they have really scraped rock bottom. It's as though they tried to find something that will stick. And so they feel the bullying claims is their best bet. I think that the whole thing with Thomas Markle Sr. and her sister, I don't even want to say her name, I think all of that is kind of run dry. The last stand for those two people was obviously on Australian television. And so they got as much mileage out of them as possible. They have reached a saturation point with those two family members. And then, of course, there's, the one that went to her brother. I even hate to say that, but her half-brother that went to Australia and appeared on some reality show. All of these things have run their course. So those are not interesting anymore. Everything that can be said has been said. And I think most people can see right through the opportunism. The only audience that they have are people who want to hear negativity, who want to hear the lies, who want to hate the Sussexes for whatever reason. Those people who just hate the Sussexes and really don't even support the Cambridges. That's what really shocks me, is that they don't even support the Cambridges. They don't care about the Cambridges. When there is some event or some activity, they don't even show up. You have more of the Middletons at a Cambridge event than you have a public struggling to reach out and smile and wave to them. When they have an event, no one shows up. So Lord Nappyhead's paper has decided that the Meghan is a bully probe being kicked into the long grass. Buckingham Palace inquiries into allegations the Duchess of Sussex bullied staff only interviews tiny handful of people who worked for her. I apologize to the people of Narnia when I say this, but it seems like sometimes you guys have investigations that go on and on and on. Like this whole thing with the Christmas party last year. I can understand it. Everybody is outraged and upset by it, but that was last year. We're kind of fickle here in the U.S. Things have a very short shelf life, and we don't really pay much attention to it. Like, as you can see, even with some of our worst tragedies, people just keep going and they move on. And because there's so many media agencies here. I guess the reason why is that there's so much media here. And with so much media, there are so many other things vying for our attention that we're just very fickle about some of those stories. We don't have a concentration of news groups telling us the same stuff over and over again. When they latch onto it here, they give it a death grip. And when they let go, it's almost hard to believe that it even happened in the first place. So I think there's a big difference here compared to over there, in that here, what's said is said, but we also don't have the tabloid-like gossiping and innuendos and pretty much hate journalism. We don't have as much of that here, and certainly not in the same vein. So that's why it's hard to keep our attention about certain things, which in a way is very unfortunate, because as you can see, January 6th doesn't seem to have much of life left in it, even though we almost had our government toppled that day. And unfortunately, here in the U.S., it's almost as though it didn't happen. And even the media that is supposed to protect us, even the media that's supposed to be so woke and left-wing, they don't even talk about it anymore. They give little cursory remarks here and there, but other than that, not much. It doesn't have much life in it. There's only a few people that are really fighting to get that story out, but essentially it's dead. Politicians, that is, in Congress will posture and huff and puff, but essentially, DOA. So, a Buckingham Palace inquiry into allegations of the Duchess of Sussex bullied staff has so far only interviewed a tiny handful of people who worked for her. The revelation has prompted fears that the investigation set up 9 months ago is being kicked into the long grass. That's because there's nothing there. There's no there. There's nothing. Oh, Lord Nappyhead. Palace aides announced in March that they, it's too bad I found out who owns this paper anyway. Lord Nappyhead, and his news group or whatever, the Palace aides announced in March that they were launching an internal inquiry into claims Meghan's behavior drove two personal assistants out of the household and undermined the confidence of a third. And so this is what really gets me. So you're saying that these people were justified to leave their work because they felt as though they were being bullied, and so this domineering American has come into the household and she's telling everybody what to do. But at the same time, this is the same newspaper that's telling people that don't leave your work because you're not happy there. You should stay there. Don't listen to this prince because he's privileged and don't know what he's talking about. This is the same newspaper that's telling people to just chin and grin your way through your work, whether or not you're happy, whether or not you feel safe and loved and cared for. You're supposed to stay in those workplaces. But at the same time, this is the same paper that is running this farcical story about how Meghan bullied staff. There's just no history of that for her. None whatsoever. There's no history of Meghan being rude or bullying anyone at any time. And she has a long work history. According to some of the derangers, she's actually 50 years old, but she lied about her age. The 53-year-old that just had a child, she lied about her age. So, she's not 40, she's 50. And her home cost, what was the price? I think it's now, 29 million dollars, and has 18, 19, well, I think we're up to 20 bathrooms now. Everything about this just reeks of being a lie. And so those individuals who they interviewed, if I remember, didn't they say, take my name out of this? I don't want to get involved with this. My point is, people who work for influential people, who work for unknown people, people who have worked in the White House, sometimes their careers are short-lived. If the person who is supposed to be your assistant does not measure up to your needs, if they're not fit for purpose, then they should go. They should go. Just because your father was a gardener here and your grandfather was a groundskeeper before him, or just because you went to school with so-and-so, does not mean you have to be here. It doesn't mean you have to be here. Staff come and go anyway. And I recalled that one of those staff people, is it just me, but wasn't one of those staff people supposedly temporary? And wasn't it the tabloids that ran away with this idea that they were driven out of the household? How much of this is they were unhappy, and how much of it was they just didn't want to work with her? In those types of situations, when you are working for, let's say, the royal family, if you are suddenly pushed over to someone marrying into the household, it's like a demotion, because your whole purpose is to climb up that ladder of success within the family until you're the groom of the stool of the whatever that title is. You're the chamber pot person for Egghead. That's your ultimate goal. Not to service or work in service of someone who just married into the family that's not even English. She's not an English Rose. She's an American. So I'm just thinking out loud on this, because nobody knows. Nobody really knows exactly what happened. As they say, there's your side of the story, there's my side of the story, and then there's the truth. And the truth is, they don't have a case. That's why they're kicking it into the tall grass, because they don't have a case. There's no case to be made, because Schillings, the Duchess's attorneys, lawyers, barristers, whatever you call them over there, those people are not playing. Her lawyers would like to interview these people. And once that happens, then the truth will come out. And the Duchess is not afraid of the truth. That's the part that gets me, is that she's not afraid. They seem to be afraid of the truth, and especially the employees. They're more afraid of the truth. And in what universe, I don't care what the situation is, I don't know that I could ever take the side of staff over my brother and his wife, my brother and my sister-in-law. What family does that happen? Obviously, Harry and William, okay, I just said it. Harry and Slick Willie, they weren't close anyway. This is more evidence that they haven't been close for years. And Harry just never said anything. They haven't been close for a long time. We love to picture them as the two princes that only had each other. Well, maybe that was the case at one point, but that ended a long time ago. Probably when Harry was in his early teens. Probably. I don't know. I wasn't there. But obviously they're not close. William, the Lord of the Manor at Kensington Palace, in one way or another drove them out of the house. And he used the tabloid media, allegedly, possibly, most likely, assuredly, but allegedly, used the media use the tabloid media, use his connections with perhaps possibly Jason Knopf and his old class chum, Dan Wooten Tootin, possibly, allegedly, use them to drive the Sussexes not only out of the house, out of the compound, the prison, Kensington Palace, but eventually out of the country. And Harry, it was a lateral move. He went from one servant's quarters to another. That's what the family thought of him, is that Anne has this house that she probably could never afford on her own. Edward has a huge house he could never afford on his own. And even the Yorks, the ultimate freeloaders, they have a house they could never afford on their own. But Harry went from Nottingham Cottage to Frogmore Cottage. And in royal households, a cottage, a grace and favor house meant for loyal staff, is servants' quarters. That's what they thought of the Sussexes. Go from one servant's quarter to another. So they wanted to have something a little more comfortable and cozy. So they moved to the Cotswolds, was it? Isn't that where they moved to, the Cotswolds? They moved to the Cotswolds so that they can live comfortably and quietly and discreetly, but they were chased out of there. There was no place else for them to go in all of Shutter Island because they were being pursued. And the people that were actually giving them up was their own family, Harry's family. The calls were coming from inside the house, inside the palace. No matter where they moved to or what, these staff people that were so unhappy, is it any wonder that they were so unhappy if you are turning against your employer? And why is that possible? Because just like with Prince Charles and Diana, if you were a palace aide, if you received your income from the sovereign grant, if you were paid for by Prince Charles, Duchy of Cornwall, wherever the money came from, they were not paid by Princess Diana. They were paid by Charles and the Queen, and they were the ones who would have to report to Charles anytime Charles wanted to know when, what, where Princess Diana was. And it was the same with the Sussexes. William, being the head of the household at Kensington Palace, I keep saying that, he was the highest ranking royal under the roof. Not the oldest, but just the highest ranking royal under the roof. And these people were not paid for. They were not hired by the Sussexes. They were given to the Sussexes. That complete lack of control over their circumstances was only going to get worse. And so they separated the households. Okay, we're no longer part of Kensington Palace. Now we're part of Buckingham Palace. But that still wasn't far enough, because all it took was a phone call from either Charles or William, and they're at such and such so-and-so. Yeah, they're planning to do blah, blah, blah. All of those things was working against them. So leaving was the best course that they could possibly take. The whole thing was eventually going to just blow up. And it did. And so the Sussexes left. But they didn't run because they were cowering away from the situation. The odds were stacked against them. Everything was stacked against them. You have the household against you. You have the press against you. And by default, you have the public against you. When you're in a home that is not yours, but it was a gift, when you're paying for a renovation with your own money, but it's still not your house, because you can have someone like Dan Wooten say, well, the taxpayers are paying for the... When you have that situation, there's nothing else for you to do. It's as though they were living inside of a glass house. and there were people on the outside trying to throw stones inside that glass house. But the house was very transparent. Everything about their lives were open and bare to the public. Everything about the Cambridges, thanks to their connection, allegedly, to the tabloids, the Cambridges' lives were very secure and quiet. Suddenly, they were no longer trouble. There was nothing wrong with them. Kate went from being this drunken party girl to an English rose from an aristocratic family from Bucklebury, or, her mother was no longer the air hostess that's planning to push her trolley down the aisles of Westminster Abbey on Coronation Day so she can sell some drinks and make a few bobs. She's no longer that. She's the future Queen Mother. Mark my words. I don't care how long it takes. At some point, there's going to be this cry for her to be known as the Queen Mother because she's the mother of the Queen Consort. I can see that happening. The Middletons are just simply too ambitious for it to go the other way. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I'm not going to do a bunch of photo editing. I'm just going to put this out there, but I just had to get that off my chest. But there is no there there. There is no there there. This whole idea that Meghan bullied the staff is a huge lie. There may have been some tensions because the staff people tried to, supersede her authority. That I could believe. But in terms of asking somebody to do a day's work, if all of this is boiling down to a 5 a.m. email, I guess I'm in trouble. I have bullied people and didn't know it because of my 5 a.m. emails, which I have done that. I have conducted all kind of business at odd hours, whether it was most likely through a text message or emails. I guess that makes me a bully. I tell you, Americans are some of the hardest working people on the planet and get the least amount of benefits or appreciation. We have gone from a country of unions to a country where people have to work 2 jobs and even have some hustle on the side just to maintain a household. And that's with 2 incomes or 2 different working adults in the house in some cases. So, if that was too much for these very fragile individuals at Kensington Palace, I'd never swear on this thing, but it at this point, I do want to say, go to HE double hockey stick. There, I said it. Yes, go straight to where, because what a bunch of, Okay, I can't say it. Anyway, thanks you guys. See you on the live chat tomorrow. That's it for now. Please like, subscribe, share, donate, etc. If you would like to make a donation and you don't know how, to help support this channel, you can go to the comments section where you can find links to the Patreon, the PayPal, and the Cash App. Thanks for watching Royal Sussex.